Hi guys and girls, how you going? Mark Hummer here. We're going to do another ISO test. And the reason for that is that basically the first one I did was very interesting. It was an interesting idea where as the ISO was rising, the light was reducing proportionally and we got a sort of a consistent, steady illumination through the whole video for comparison. Now what we're going to do is another ISO comparison where I'm going to have this one single light that I'm using now. I'm going to have it at its lowest level of 10%. And then what I'm going to do is raise the ISO in increments, which of course I'll give you a little notification up in the corner here, what ISO we're at any time. So you can hear me, but just in case you're listening to it silently, you'll see the little box with the numeration on it. So we'll try that with a fixed lighting that is extremely low. So as I say, the light now that I'm using for this introductory speech is on 100%, but that very light will be reduced down now to 10% of that when we start, and then we're going to bring the ISO up and just see how much the ISO is significant with almost no lighting. The only other lighting in the room, well, the main light on the top of the roof, the light bulb in the room, has been shut down, turned off, and the only other lighting is these little boxes of light, these little Chinese boxes, but understand that they're little tea lights. They're incredibly small. The two of the lightings together would be less than one candle, probably half of a candle power. So it's very dull. But it would be interesting to see how bright and brighter that appears in the background as the ISO increases. So that's just something to gauge it with. But other than that light, even my computer monitor is turned off just so that doesn't generate any light as well to interfere with the test. So the room is isolated, the door is shut. There is only one light source other than these little tea lights, which are totally insignificant. And we'll go and see how that all compares and looks. I'm going to go up to a range of about ISO 6400, maybe 8000, but after that I consider that nonsense ISO because, well, what are you doing shooting in complete darkness? If you're doing that, well, you've really got nothing to film anyway, have you? So I think that that's a sufficient testing ground to go with. So let's see how we go. I'll start the test now and you can examine it along with me. Just brace yourself for the first couple of tests being extremely dark. So here we are, guys. Hope you're bracing with me here. Now you notice obviously it's an incredibly dark image, and that's because the light is turned down to its lowest level possible, which is, it calls it 10%, but really it's on, the next integrant after that is off. You can see how brightly they look like they're on fire now in the background here, but really that shows you how dark it is when those tiny little tea lights you saw before look and illuminate, glow like that. Look like little fires, don't they? It's quite funny how warm the light is. The light I'm using here is 5500 Kelvin, so it's very, very white light. And as you can see, the room is very dimly lit and dark. This is ISO 100, by the way. And of course, I'm shooting at f4 at 25 frames a second at 4K at 50th of a second. So that gives you a basic guide of where we're at. And we're using the Z6 and it's supposed to be very good at the low light. So let's do our comparison test and we'll see as I go up my next increment, which will probably be ISO 250, and then we'll go up to ISO 400 and so on. So let's start at our next level now. So here we are again, friends. We're at ISO 250 now. Now, obviously, there are increments in between that. You know, you can go to 160 and so on, but I don't think the increments are worthwhile worrying about. We go in reasonable stages, or why even bother? It just makes it too drawn out and long. So ISO 250, as I say, none of the settings have been changed. It's still f4, still the 4K 25 frames a second, and still the ring lights at their lowest level. So friends, here we are again. We've got our next ISO increment up. We're now at ISO 500. Nothing, of course, has changed, only the ISO level has risen. I'm starting to see now that the room's getting illuminated enough that you can see all the little objects around. You can make out some decent colours and so on. There's quite a bit of light and shadow on my face. Still way underexposed, but at ISO 500 we're starting to make some progress in recovery of the image. Next increment, of course, we're at ISO 1000 now. Now you notice I'm doubling the increments. I'm not mucking around with the little bits in between like 640 and 800 and so on. May as well make it significant so we can see a bit of a contrast. So at ISO 1000 now, as again, you're starting to really pick up on the shadows and some of the details are really coming through. I'm almost starting to get illuminated where it's, you know, usable standard. So the next increment now will probably go up to 1600. I think that's significant. I'll go check it out on camera. Maybe it's 2000. I'll go have a look and I'll let you know. So here we go at ISO 1600. I chose that one because I thought that was a significant enough increase and did seem to make some difference to the picture quality. So here you are at ISO 1600. starting to feel that things are looking quite bright and well lit. You're starting to make out all the details. I've left some cameras you may see in the back here, and the reason be that is that they're black, and so with a little bit of backlighting from those golden lights there, you might be able to pick up some details and interesting looks there. So I've got some black images here. I've got colors and whites. I've chosen the shirt for a reason because it's quite contrasty with the blue and the white in it. So here we are now at next increment up, of course, and needless to say, it's quite a lot brighter now. Pretty interesting to look at almost. You can start picking everything out. Now, what we're at is ISO 2500. I thought that was the next appropriate increment. It seemed to make a significant difference, and that's really what I'm looking for. We're probably getting very close to a usable image now, something you might post online. I'm thinking that maybe about 3200 or 3600, something around there, might be just about spot on for what we want. But let's go check it out and see how we go. So right now we're shooting at 3200, that's 3200 ISO. As I've said previously, nothing has changed, no settings in the camera, no lighting alterations at all, only the ISO has been increased. And now it's actually getting pretty good. I can see from the monitor that I'm looking at, it looks quite good. It's quite a bit contrasty. That's probably because I'm used to using a lot more light sources, and that sort of floods the room with more light and makes the whole image brighter. But it's looking pretty good now. I think that's quite an acceptable image. You let me know what you're thinking. Got another incremental change for you. We're at ISO 4000 now. So it's getting quite bright, and I'm really liking how it's looking. The lighting looks like it's doing its job, and you've got to appreciate, even though the image is getting brighter and brighter in increments for you, in the room here it's still as dark as it was when the first shot was taken. You know, that first 100 ISO where it was all nearly black in the room? Well, that's how it still looks to me. But the ISO seems to be working really well in brightening the image up, considering the lighting is so soft and low. So I'm getting really pleased with how bright it's getting and how clear it still seems to look. To me, it's looking great. I can't wait to see it on the computer and then compare with your thoughts and impressions. So we're at ISO 5000 now. So we've just gone from 4000 to 5000. That's quite an incremental change. And I think we're up to the top end of what we're going to be doing tonight. I might go up to 6400, maybe even 8000. We'll see how it looks in the back of the monitor first before I commit. Here we are now at ISO 6400, and that's pretty much what I was expecting to get to and what would be the most appropriate. Be interesting to see my guess if it was correct, but 6400 at the moment. Yeah, it's looking quite bright and good, lots of details, and everything seems to be popping in colour. The only thing I can't tell by looking at the monitor is, of course, the noise level. So we'll go have a look at that in detail, and I'm a big monitor, and I've got a 40-inch 4K screen there. If I can't pick up some noise, no one can. So I'm pretty sure it's looking pretty good. So right now we're recording at ISO 8000. So we're really boosting it up, aren't we? From 64 to 8000, that's quite a decent increment. So hopefully it's looking good. Looks a little bit on the overexposed side, particularly on the side of my face over this side here. It looks quite bright. Light seems to be coming slightly from that side. But whether it's blown out in highlights yet or not, I'm not too sure. I will promise you this, that I'm not going to make a lot of alterations in post. Might do a slight bit of colour correction, but that's about all, because we had a bit of a yellow glow with those lights initially, didn't we? But you can now, if you have a look at those little Japanese lights in the background there, you can see that the amberness of them has completely gone away, and it's pretty much just a little white box. So it's quite a change, isn't it? So how they're going with shadows and noise in the background and the blacks and so on near the cameras, that'll be very interesting to see, won't it? So this is our last test we're doing tonight. This is ISO 10,000. Now I'm pretty positive that most of anything light or bright or white is going to be blown out in the highlights, which I'm expecting to be the case. So ISO 10,000, if it's still a decently clean image and low in noise and artifacts, that's pretty good going. And remember, the lighting I have is just one very soft light, or I shouldn't say one light, it's actually quite a remarkable light, but it is one very large ring light, and at its lowest level possible. So you saw how dull the room was in the first shot. You see how bright it's looking now? Gives you a bit of scope and just how far you can go in bringing up the brightness. So what do you think, guys? This is the end result, if you like, my evaluation. And in my opinion, from my monitor and the settings on my screen, I'm seeing that 6400 looks really good. So maybe you have a different opinion. I'd love to hear from you if you've maybe your monitor or your device picks it up a little differently. But for me, this is pretty good. I'm happy with this setting as a maximum use.